Okay, so looks like we are live. How you doing, Peter?
Doing good. Big
So
day today.
good. Um, I've got Peter Mohrbacher. Am I saying your last name right?
You are, yes.
Mohrbacher with us today, and I'll just start out by saying I have been a huge admirer of your work for the last 4 or 5 years. And as a teacher, I think I told you this once before that I've used your images in class.
Oh,
And
yeah, now I remember.
yeah. So anyway, it's just neat to be able to actually talk to the person. And so I noticed that you're doing a Kickstarter now, and I thought, what would be a better time than to actually do kind of a little bit of an interview and talk about when I watch your fantastic One Fantastic Week videos. You talk about a lot of things that I'm into, and so I feel like we're kindred in a lot of ways, you know. So I'm just going to start asking you stuff, and you can start telling about.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I'm going to be saying a lot of the stuff that your viewers have probably heard before, but they'll get to hear it from one more person.
Yeah, well, and that's really important is that kind of reinforcement. But I'm sure you're going to give us a lot of new stuff too. So we're going to get into the topic of creating your own illustration job.
Sure.
But before we do, I thought we could talk maybe a little bit about your Kickstarter, just because that's one of the hardest things, and people had told me how hard it was, but until you actually run one, you don't realize how your life is basically, it's just thrown into the fan until it's over.
Yeah. I mean, this is my fifth one, so I've gotten pretty good at them. The first 10 days was actually really easy for me because, well, I front loaded all the work up ahead of the campaign, and that was a really tough month. But then once I launched it, I had a lot of built up awareness of the brand and the project that was feeding out, and I was getting a really strong initial response. And every little effort I had as far as like trying to like push that promotion by getting people to signal boost it, or trying to get like people on Tumblr to talk about it, or like a lot of social media posts, didn't really do much compared to like the main core, which was people following along with it through the main website, the mailing list, stuff like that. So
Right.
I was able to like jam out an update in the morning and basically be done with the Kickstarter for the whole day before 11 a.m., which was awesome.
Wow.
And I mean, anyone who's run one before, it's like that is a very unusual circumstance for
Oh
someone in
yeah.
the middle of a big campaign. And especially considering like this is the largest campaign I've run by a lot. Like I was like, I felt really smart in that moment. Like, oh man, I've totally got on top of this beast. I'm cruising. It's easy. Once I was running for 40 days. Once I hit the 30-day mark, I started to sweat it again. Like the fear started to come back. I started to feel it in my chest. Like at first it was like this tingling in my hands and feet. I was telling my wife, I was like, I got this weird body high. I don't know what it is. She's like, I think you're gonna start getting nervous about your Kickstarter. I was like, oh, that's weird. So like 10 straight days, I didn't feel anything. Like I could feel the physical reactions of it first before I started to mentally freak out. Really got on top of me. So I'm back in the Kickstarter zone, and it's full on again. Today was started off as a slow day, so a minor freak out led to me having to hustle this morning and get things going.
Hey, I might remind people while we're talking right now that I put in the description right under this video the link to both your website and your Kickstarter so they can check it out.
Yeah, real quick, it's the second book. I do a series called Angelarium. It's a series of illustrations. I have short stories and poems that go along with them, and it's something I've been up to for over 10 years. And last year, I did the first book in the series. Sort of the kicking off of the project after I committed to doing it as my full-time job. And then over a year later, I built up enough content to do a sequel, which is significantly larger than the first book. And so this is the Kickstarter is to self-publish that book, and also there's other things that go along with it, like a sketchbook full of process work, as well as like metal coins and cards and things that I'm going to need to print in large batches. So I need to take pre-orders in order to be able to stock them effectively. So I've rolled that all up into one big Kickstarter campaign.
You are like this business genius, aren't you?
No,
Artist business genius.
I am an adequate businessman, which I think actually makes me very strange for an artist. I'm able to run a small business at a profit, and that's not something that I think most people, especially most artists, are interested in doing with their time, because it's a really time-consuming and really stressful thing to grab a hold of. But it's been a big hobby for me. You know, it's like, what does Sam say? My co-host on One Fantastic Week, he says that you know, like, art is married to his art, and business is his mistress, or something like that. I mean, that's kind of it for me too. We're both like that.
So did you take any classes? Because when I hear your podcast, it sounds like you're half and half. Like, I think most, like me, when I talk about business, I'm like artist first, business a distant second. But you use all the kinds of terminology. I'm like, I have to write that down. That sounds
Oh,
pretty good.
okay. Yeah. So a couple of different sources for that. That's like, I always tell people they have to like mine their circumstances, you know, like what their life experiences are, to find where their advantage is in the marketplace. And I got mine from having two entrepreneur parents. And then when I went out to San Francisco to work at a social games company, it was like these small pods of people working together of different disciplines. And I started to ask a lot of questions of the producers, who were like the business guys on the team, who are the ones with all the they ran spreadsheets all day and they talked business lingo all day. And like, that's what my company was all about, was trying to innovate on the business side of games while making fairly boring games make lots of money. And at first I thought I kind of hated that, but then at a certain point I kind of committed to the idea of how much of this lingo can I pick up? How many of these core concepts can I pick up from like guys who went to Harvard Business School, you know, being in a one-on-one with a guy who's been to Harvard Business School, showing me his spreadsheets and trying to understand, like, what does he value? What are the core concepts behind his decision-making when it comes to trying to sell this product online? I think I learned a lot from that. I don't think I even really realized how valuable that was at the time, but just as far as like a crash course in gaining basic competency, like being around people who did that, and then also having been raised with that mindset of it being like a thing that somebody can do, together, like, really helped me get off on the right foot when I decided to go build my own business and start working for myself.
So I'm always trying to pretend like I'm the viewer and I'm listening to the person talk. And the thing that's running through my head right now is, okay, so I didn't get to sit with a Harvard business guy. So what am I eternally damned to never being a good business person? Like, how do I catch up if I'm an artist that
You're like begging me to plug my workshop, I think. But the real answer is that you hang around with people who do the sort of thing that you want to learn how to do. I mean, it's the same with everything. Like, if you want to get really good at a certain type of artwork, like, you start forming relationships with the people who make that stuff and figuring out what they value, what are they into, like, what do they spend their time on, how do they spend their leisure, like, what are the things that get them excited? Because when you start sharing those things with people in a community, like, you pick up a lot through osmosis. And I think that if there's like a growing community of us around One Fantastic Week, which is like, I think the one art community that's kind of focused in the entertainment industry about entrepreneurship as like a major value. So like, we're always just talking nuts and bolts stuff on our show, and as well as like in our Facebook group. And now we've got this workshop that we're doing every year called the Fantastic Workshop, where we're bringing together a bunch of successful artist entrepreneurs, and having them teach at a 4-day workshop. And the goal is to sort of build a community of that so strong that, like, you know, my friend Sam and I, who are running this thing, are basically going to be disqualifying ourselves as teachers because we won't know enough. You know, we want to really, we want to build like a space for people to have this as like a really strong resource, because we think that a community of people who are really literate in business, a lot of artists who are literate in business, are good for the industry as a whole, because this is the wrong choice for a lot of people. Like, splitting yourself between artist and business person, like, is not the best choice for every single artist, like, hands down. Probably not even for the majority of them, but I think for the ones that it is the best option for, like, there needs to be resources for them. And I think getting them out of the pool of people who are trying to compete in the commercial space helps the people who, being a commercial artist is the best fit for them, because it gets people like me from taking away Magic commissions. You know, like me working on Magic the Gathering is bad for people who want to work on Magic the Gathering because I'm taking up commission slots, even though I'm angry at the process, and it's like I should just get out of there. I should not do that.
Right.
So I think all of us who are inclined in this space should get the heck out of the way for the people who are really good fits for it. And shepherding them away from that is like not so much like a lack of confidence in that system being good for artists, but just like trying to help sort people into camps where they can get what's best for them.
Wow. So, well, I mean, you don't look like you're being driven crazy by any of this. You still have your hair, your skin looks good.
A lot of indoor living, yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of not on topic just yet, but I mean, I think all this leads up to it, and I could talk to you for hours, even off camera, about and pick your brain about stuff. I noticed that you do a lot on your website, and I would encourage people to go and check out the link that I put down there for your website, because I noticed you also do mentorships. And one thing that you said in your podcast, and I won't get it, the last one. What was the name of the last one that you just did?
Like how to exponentially increase your Kickstarter something about exponential and Kickstarter.
Right, and there were a lot of gems in there. And one of the things that I heard you talking about in there that I thought was really, really unique was, as artists, we shouldn't feel bad for charging what we're worth. We shouldn't feel bad for that was the gist of it. We shouldn't feel bad for charging a living wage and for trying to make money with our art, and I noticed that you have a mentorship for like $600, which I think would look pretty steep to some people, but compared to college tuitions and things like that, very reasonable for what you get with someone who has been in the industry. You've worked on, like you said, Magic the Gathering, so you've worked in the freelance space. We're going to shift over and talk about owning your own job or creating your own job. That's pretty much what you do now, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I always worked freelance on the side while I worked at studio for. I did about 6 years worth of studio work. And
was that working in the studio or?
Yeah, and then freelance nights and weekends, and then, conventions and making my own work and trying to sell my own work on the side as well. Like, I've always been overly busy, but after getting fired from my last gig, not laid off. I was the only one fired. I was laid off from my first gig. I was fired for my second one, my second big one. And I was like, I don't want to get another job. Like, I think that the value inherent in the work that I can make, like if it's this valuable to other people, if I see it getting, if the artwork I'm making is propping up like a $10 million IP for some company that most people haven't even heard of, it should be valuable enough for me to be able to make like a basic living wage off of.
Right.
Or like if it's if Magic is paying me $1,000, I know that they're getting at least $3,000 worth of value out of an illustration I do. That's just the way employment works. What if I just did it for myself, and maybe I get only $1,000 worth of value over the course of the first year, but then lifetime owning that work, what is it worth to me? I just kept thinking, like, there are routes out of where I'm at right now, because I see ways of monetizing the value that I create for other people and holding on to that value. And I was really wanting to try them out, because some of the stuff I've seen from friends of mine was getting me really excited. Just doing the mental math, I was like, these numbers seem crazy. Like, it seems like I should be able to make $100,000 a year if I make all the work that I think I can make, and it's valued the same way that I think it's valued. And it's been a really wild ride, because I gave myself a 2-year runway to get this thing to take off, and it took me 2 months.
Was that Angelarium?
Yeah, I mean, well, the first year I was unemployed, I did a balance of things. I wanted to try to balance freelance and teaching and or education as a whole, between like consulting and teaching, and also selling educational products.
Mhm.
and then having my core IP building. And like, oh, I think like between these three, as they ebb and flow, they should be at least one of them all the time that's valuable. And over that first year, I found I was split too thin, and I didn't get any Angelarium work done. And it was a year into the process that I basically wiped the whole slate clean and just did 100% Angelarium to see what would happen. And it was like it was crazy. It took off really, really fast.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, even without that, um, there were other avenues to go to be independent, and that was what I learned in that first year, was that there was probably 3 or 4 different ways I could have tried to make a living. This is the one I wanted to do, and
Mhm.
this is the one I felt like I was best suited for. And so when I stopped trying to like hedge my bets and commit fully to a single path, that's when I actually started to get the best level of success for myself. And I managed to make more money that way. I managed to be more happy with the work I was doing. I felt less, I'm still spread pretty thin, but I felt like I was in control of my situation for the first
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
I mean, even with employment, I always felt like there was this sort of Damocles hanging over my head. You know, it was only so long before the project or the team or my relationship with my boss blew up. But with, my own work, like it's this, I see this really long road ahead of me, and I just don't feel that level of impending doom like I did.
So, okay, so let's back up just a little bit. And so we've got freelance work,
Mm-hmm.
and then we've got what I would call creating your own job or selling your own IP.
Right.
What is, can you speak to what you think the level of security is on each?
I don't like the level of security on freelance at all, because I know a lot of freelance artists, and it's feast or famine. And when you look at someone's Facebook feed, they're not going to gripe publicly about when times are bad. But
Mm,
when
mm,
you're out drinking with someone at a convention, you know who's going through bad times. And I know I haven't had to deal with that with my own IP. Um, there was a moment of crisis when February hit, where I discovered after the new year, no one buys anything for the first 3 months. That's why you have all these mattress sales. Like everyone's desperate to like make sales during that time because commerce slows down after the new year. And the first time it happened to me, I was like, what happened? Is my whole business done? Is it over forever? And then it was like, no, you got to wait till April when people have money in their pockets again. You know, that
yeah.
was it. Like you stock up, you do a big Christmas season rush, do a big Black Friday thing, you stock up, and then you like make sure to make safe bets for the next 3 months because you're going to have lower sales between, January and March. And that's just it. And I'm finally having to get to see the whole wave of the year go by, and having been at it for over a year, like now I can see that. It just looks like this crazy steady rhythm. Like I know there's certain things I can do. If I do those things, money happens. Just for a while, it felt unpredictable, and it got really scary to release content because I didn't know when it was going to go well and when it was going to go bad. How bad could it get? How long could it be bad? And over time, like getting a sense of it, um, it seems fine. It seems really stable. Like there are things I can do that will guarantee make money. Like just
You're,
the same as
you're,
getting a job, except for I think that they pay better. Like a convention. Like if I go to a convention, it's over a certain size and it's a certain type of audience. I know there's a minimum amount I'm going to make, and it's a decent amount. Like it's safe, a very, very safe bet.
hmm.
But I couldn't make all those bets if I was splitting my time, if I was trying to hold down a job and I was trying to do freelance and I was working for other people's projects. Like
Right,
being able to like be in control of that schedule is like what allows me to make all those really safe bets on myself.
right,
They certainly didn't feel safe at first.
right. You go through that initial process like you talked about. Um, okay, so I'm a student
Right.
and I'm finishing school, and I'm wanting to get freelance. I mean, to me, I think that's what most of my students say is, um, that's the thing they're looking for, not only for the money, but for the validation of, I worked for this company. Like in your case, you worked for Magic the Gathering. I think that would be, for a lot of students, that would be, they can't really see any further beyond that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a certain lack of imagination. Because hasn't been a lot of exposure to what else is beyond that. I can tell you that I make more money off of a single Angelarian painting than I did off of Magic the Gathering painting by a lot,
Right.
multiples. And it's yeah. There's like there's I think okay. So the student like they get out of school and they're like, okay, what do I do with myself now? The first thing I see everyone do is they say, what does success look like? Who's successful and what are they doing? And you see these really public examples, and a lot of that is freelance, right? Someone goes, I'm a part of this very cool project. Like this project is an official video game, and so that means that I'm validated. But if you get to know people who work in the industry, they're like, I spent 4 years on this project, and it was a really great project, and it got a lot of critical acclaim, but no one is willing to give me any ownership of the work I did on it. Like, studio isn't paying out any bonuses. The people who like the thing don't know who I am. When I tell people I worked on this, they assume that I didn't work on anything meaningful as a part of it, and so like I don't actually get to enjoy any kind of ownership over that. So there's like this celebratory moment on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, but rarely do I see people feel like, looking back on their involvement in commercial projects in a way where they feel like they were a part of it, that they feel like they got real ownership out of it, that it was like a valuable thing that was important to them. It happens, but so much more often, like the things that I think students strive for, they don't really realize that many of those, that when they're involved in that, it's very much just working as a service. And just like any other service person, like you are not given like ownership over the fact that you did a good job.
Right.
The fact that you should be satisfied, just the fact that you got paid and that you got to do it, and like that you have your own personal satisfaction tied into it, and you shouldn't care that anybody knows that you did anything.
Right. So it's stages, right? I mean, it's like at first I remember the first job that one of my dad's friends paid me to do some calligraphic lettering, and I actually got real money for writing these names on certificates for his work.
Yeah.
And I still remember that feeling of I'm not getting paid to dig a ditch or to flip a burger, which I had jobs doing that. I'm getting paid to do artwork, and that was just such a neat thing. But what you're saying is you're gonna outgrow that, right?
Yeah, I'm a peculiar case. Like one of the things that's unique about me is that I actually did do like landscaping and work retail and stuff like that. So it's not like I have some sort of silver spoon or anything. But I did not get any satisfaction at all from a lot of the early gigs. Like I would speak openly that I was very satisfied with it, but that was because I wanted to fulfill that social obligation to be satisfied by it. I've only ever really been attached to personal work and times when I've been given no direction and allowed to explore the themes in my work, and that's allowed me to actually like get really into making art as an expression and not just as a commercial service. And that's assisted me in building the audience that I have and making the kind of work that I do. But the byproduct is that I was just deeply unhappy, even with jobs that were pretty good for where I was in my career. I don't know. I'm kind of glad for that trade-off, but it stuck me in kind of a weird situation.
Well, I think everybody has that frustration when you finally do get the job. It's like this. I don't care whether it's a children's book, which is the things that I do, or if it's a Magic the Gathering, who I've never worked for. But you it's almost like you get that relief of I'm going to get this money, so the world's going to be fine, and when I wake up tomorrow, it's going to be great because I'm going to be able to pay bills. But then you get to that point where, okay, now I have to get into the job, and then when you get into the job of it, and you start getting art directed, and things aren't necessarily going according to your vision, which they often don't. That's when you start to wish for something more, right?
Right. I mean, the topic of this episode is like crafting your own job, right? So, like, I got started on it really early. What I recommend to students, I mean, say a student is listening to this, What I recommend to them, and I got to write a blog post about it or something, is like, you need to start treating your time as though you are working for yourself, like right now. You can do it right now. If you make 6 paintings a month, like how many pictures are you expected to make at a job if you're working in a studio? Like
A lot.
picture a week, picture a day, 3 pictures a day. And how much does the average student do after they no longer have schoolwork to keep them on a tempo? And the answer is like maybe a piece every couple of months. Right. And they're like, what am I missing? Well, you're missing that you aren't working. Like, and that's not the fault of people who won't hire you. That's your problem. If when I work with people in a mentorship, what I typically am trying to do is trying to break them away from the idea that they are working for someone as a service when they're not, so that they express themselves through their work and they try to find their voice. And the other thing is I want to try to get them to make 6 pieces a month, because if I can, I want to get them to make 6 pieces a week, because it's like when if I have a mentee who's making 5 or 6 pieces a week and is releasing sets of pieces at 5 or 6, their response from social media goes way up, their employability goes way up, their portfolio starts to look way better within like the span of a single month. And it's not because I'm instilling in them some specific piece of knowledge. I'm barely ever teaching them anything about drawing or painting. It's a lot of it is just trying to re-gear expectations to treat it as though it's a serious job. Like if you're out of school and you don't know what your next step is, let me tell you your next step. Make 4 finished pieces a week. Yeah. That means
we're socially engineered, whether we know it or not, to get a job, right? I mean, that's what we've been raised to do. So it's going to seem very foreign for most people to create their own job. But what I'm hearing you say is that starts right when you're finished with school, or even before you're finished with school.
Yeah, I had a way huge leg up on everyone else I went to school with, because I was doing finished paintings for myself for Angelarium before graduating. I was building my own projects and releasing my own series and like trying to get the largest possible reaction across. I mean, social media wasn't a word yet. It was like DeviantArt and CG Talk, websites where people were looking at digital art. I was trying to get those reactions and trying to get those numbers bigger. Trying to, level up on just my social reach back then. And then when I got out, everyone's like, okay, so now the employment department's going to help me get a job. I'm like, yeah, probably not. I mean, but at the same time, like I had a portfolio that wasn't student work. I had a portfolio that was my stuff, and it held together because in a way that student work fundamentally can't. And that allowed me to get some crappy entry-level jobs right out of college, and they were crappy. I worked on like My Little Pony for like the Game Boy Advance, and then I worked at a really crappy shovelware company that doesn't exist anymore for good reasons. And it's like, but I think there weren't that many people in my graduating class that were able to get any jobs, because this is a super competitive industry.
Right.
So, treating my spare time like it was a job where I was working for myself before the stakes had been raised didn't just give me the ability to do big Kickstarters 10 years later. It got me into studio work during the time before I knew what I was doing well enough to make myself a job.
Right.
Like when you are making work for yourself and treating your personal work seriously, you increase the amount you can sell at conventions, you increase the amount you can sell online, you increase the amount of social reach you have, you increase your employability. You like everything you could ever want in any kind of career path, you get more of. And that's why if you're a student right now and you're not making at least 1 piece a week, try to shoot for 4 and just push that stuff as hard as you can for as long as you can, because this is how the rest of your life is supposed to go. If that sounds too exhausting to you, like, what do you think is going to happen when you get in the studio? Like, what's different?
Right. So you've got to be loving your life right now.
It's stressful, but I mean, this is the life I chose for myself. I'm very happy with the way things have turned out. The thing I was talking to my wife about this recently. The thing that was actually the big difference isn't always the moment to moment, because sometimes I get frustrated that I'm locking myself into a series that I'm having a hard time finishing. And at that point, it almost feels like, oh, am I just trading one master for another? Am I like just constructing the straw man that tells me what to do? But it's not that. Like, one of the great advantages to working for myself is that I'm, I get to look back on the work that I made over the last year and be really proud of it in a way that just doesn't never happen to me before. Like, I'm looking back over the past year and a half, 2 years right now, and seeing the work and seeing those pieces, and still selling prints of them today. I got a printer running right now, and I'm really passionate about the results of that work, and I feel really confident in it, and I feel attached to it. And I'm producing more work right now. The painting I want to get back to, I'm like, this is a good one. I'm happy to be doing this, and I'm happy to see how people react to it. And I know I'm going to be carrying this one with me to conventions for the next few years. And I'm going to be happy to have that on the table, and the ability to look back in retrospect and just feel like really satisfied with the work is a luxury I've never gotten to enjoy before. And even if things are stressful in the moment and I'm like spread too thin and my job is hard, it's like, that's fine. That's kind of the way I like it. And
you don't have a boss. You don't have anybody telling you when things are due. You're your own boss.
Yeah, but I have customers. I mean, like, people, if I make a piece that I'm not 100% confident in, and I have a boss and he's like, I don't think this is good, I go, I disagree, but like, if I like have a picture and fans are like, we don't like this one, I can't be like, my fans are idiots. I can say my boss is an idiot, but I can't say my fans are idiots. I mean, they're signing up to be a part of something because they have genuine feelings about it, not because there's some arbitrary level of quality they want me to hit. And so if I'm not connecting with them, that's heartbreaking to me. So the stakes are so much higher dealing directly with an audience, because it's when it's good, it's really good, but when it's bad, it hurts because there's just no protective layer between me and them.
Right. So you've obviously, I'm assuming you've created some pieces that didn't respond well with your audience.
I was worried about the last one. The last one did really good. It was the first landscape piece I'd ever done for the project.
All vertical with the
did like this super vertical. The first environmental piece I did, instead of doing it landscape format, I did it like super tall vertical as a 2:1 aspect ratio, and I really beat myself up over it. And I turned it in on Patreon to my Patreon backers a few weeks ago, and I didn't feel great about where it ended up. And they came back to me and were like, well, glad you're doing experiments. This one isn't my favorite,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got this one Patreon backer who's great, who's just like a super straight talker, and I love him because he tells me what I like. If my delivery, if there's something wrong with my shipping rates on my website, like, people will just be like, oh, his shipping rates are bad. But like, this guy will come at me and be like, I think your shipping rates are broken. I'll go like, oh, thanks for pointing that out. But he'll also, like, if I'm not 100% in on a piece, like, he'll call me out on it too. And so, but then I took a second lap on it, and I was like, this is the best I can do. Like, I put everything into like making sure this thing works, and it was like the best received piece I've ever posted on Facebook. It's like,
I saw that's one of the reasons why I actually contacted you to do this interview. Is I thought it was a lot different than what I normally saw you do. I actually posted it to announce this this live chat, but
oh, cool, yeah, that was a really hard piece, really hard.
I thought it was really different and stunning. So that's my opinion on it.
Okay, good. The response has been really positive, but I would spend too much time being too close to it. I spent like a month on it, and it was too long to spend on it. I mean, I'm telling people to do 4 pieces a week. It took me a month to finish this painting. I'm like really beating myself up, but like, yeah, I mean, working for yourself, like, if it's the right fit for you, you have to do it. But I wouldn't say that it's like, it makes you happy every day, or that it's easier, or anything. I can make an argument for it that if it works, it is potentially far more profitable than any job will probably pay you. I was at a warehouse. I was at the warehouse I used to fill my books. I was over there, and then they're like, "Oh, do you have a job?" I was like, "Nah, I work for myself." And the guy laughs. He goes, "Haha, infinite income potential, huh?" Like, oh yeah. Which is like, is like, yeah, potentially that's true, but being an entrepreneur means that you're basically putting your life in your hands. There's a lot of people who do that like go broke.
Right.
And
So that was going to be another question I was going to ask. I have a couple more, but one of them was, because one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, I'm doing what you're saying, but nobody's responding to what I'm doing, which is one of the hardest questions, because if people aren't responding to your work, that's not only emotionally draining, but you can't make any money.
yeah, well, the prescription I have for that is pretty straightforward, actually. I mean, that sounds like it's a really difficult problem, but honestly, the people I know who have managed to turn that around, a lot of that has to do with them trying to make work that's more, in their own style. Like, a lot of people end up getting lost in the expectations of what they think is going to be popular or what they think they need to do with their art, and they sort of cater to this phantom art director that tells them to, oh, you got to really render these things, or oh, you got to make sure that it's going to have like a really cool character. And I hate the idea of drawing a cool character. Like, we're like, well, I should draw like a cool character, like, I don't know, like a sexy elf cyborg. And you're like, you look at, and they're like, no one responded to my sexy elf cyborg. I thought these things were popular. I really rendered the hell out of this thing. What am I doing wrong? It's like, yeah, but do you even care? Like, did you care about this painting? Like,
Right.
did you care about a sexy elf cyborg? Did that make you happy? Like, is this something that really, like, what do you feel when you think about a sexy elf cyborg? If the answer is nothing, then you can assume that the audience will feel nothing.
Right.
I mean,
That's
it's
so
fair to
important.
assume. And people are like, okay, well, how do I draw my personal experience? I grew up in the suburbs, sheltered lifestyle. I didn't ever do anything fancy. I've never been to Burning Man. What do I draw from? And I'm like, you look at like the work of like Simon Stålenhag is a great example. He's the Swedish painter, and all of his paintings seem to exist in this sort of semi-rural suburbia of Sweden, but with these these mixtures of sci-fi elements and surreal elements that give it this huge presence, because there's this grand sense of space in there. Like, we've all experienced strong emotions. We've all experienced like our own unique things. And it's really hard for people to distance what they've done day to day for their whole life from the experiences of everyone else around them. It's hard for them to mine their own real, actual life experiences for an artistic expression, because they don't feel like it's any different from anybody else's, or that they feel like it doesn't have any inherent value, or that it's not grand enough or not interesting enough. But when I see people make artwork that is an honest expression of the way they see the world, other people perk up their heads and they pay attention, even when it's simple, even with simple, small scope pieces, even if it's not rendered a lot, there's not a lot of lighting. When you're just showing your own taste, your own fascinations, your own idle thoughts you've had since you were a little kid on the page in your own voice, for whatever that's worth, that always gets a better response than trying to cater to that expectation, that bad faith of what you think you need to be. And
So it takes some real soul searching, because
sure.
what I hear you saying is, it's got to be you. You've got to be putting you on the surface, not what someone else wants. And that you kind of went right through my other question, because I was going to ask, should you do what you want, or should you try to play the market or do what the market wants?
You can gear some things to the market sometimes, but it's not the best to be cynical. Like,
right.
There was I needed to do a playmat design for a Kickstarter, and it was supposed to be for Magic fans. And I was like, I'm gonna make a angel lady with big boobs and a flaming sword, because they are going to dig that. And they did. Because it's just like, I knew what that market wanted, and I was going to make this one cynical, like, low pass, and I was just going to do a limited run of it, but it's not going to be an iconic piece for me. Right. It didn't have any staying power. It sold some mats when people liked it in that moment, but it's like not a thing. It stopped being a thing as soon as people like stopped looking at it. it didn't leave an impression on them the way that artwork has the capacity to do.
Yeah.
And if you really like something that is popular, like if someone's a really big fan of Overwatch and loves the Overwatch characters, like, or they're really big into Pokemon, they've been big into Pokemon forever, like something that's really popular right now, you don't say, I'm going to shirk that because it's, that's something that's popular. It's the market would want that. So I'm going to find something personal. I'm going to draw, about the way that I always ate salmon sandwiches when I went to grade school. So I'm going to draw a character named Sammy, the salmon sandwich. No, just draw fan art if you like fan art. Draw the things that you're interested in. Draw the things that catch your eye and the things that you're attached to. And even if you feel like it's dumb or superficial, like do it anyway, because you don't get to control what ideas you have. You don't get to control what fascinations you have. The only choice you have is either lean into it or not.
Yep.
And I mean, that's why, I've been trying to, like, people who want to do fan art, I want to tell them it's okay, because there's a lot of people out there who feel, I get the question all the time, like, I've been doing a lot of fan art, but now I want to start making my own thing. What do you recommend? The recommendation is you should make more fan art and stop worrying about it. Don't get too hung up on yourself. Don't get too hung up on this idea that there's a better way to make art and a worse way to make art. Just do the stuff that matters.
Follow your. Yeah, I think we get hung up sometimes on. From when we were a kid, we started. I mean, like, the reason people go to art school is because hopefully most of them, not always, but most of them, were creating art as a kid, and you didn't have all these things running through your head when you were younger. You just started to play around with the materials, and you made something cool, and you thought, oh, well, maybe I'll take this further and go to school. But then when you come out of school, your head starts filling up with, well, look at what this cool person's doing, like what that cool person's doing. Where do I fit in? And I think it's daunting for a lot of people to try to figure that out.
I think it comes from a lot of bad question asking at the root of it. People go, so what do you want to do? And the student answers, I want to do concept art. And the student says, I want to do concept art because they think there's a lot of jobs in concept art that are sort of like the kind of drawing they want to do.
Right.
But they don't actually know what concept art is. They don't actually aspire to do those things day to day. They don't understand the challenges associated with it. And so they drop everything they're doing to like get better at a thing that they have no knowledge of or interest in, because there's an expectation for that. And so you have a lot of teachers who are trying to teach people stuff that they don't want to learn, even though they're saying they want to learn it. They say, I want to learn concept art. Can you teach it to me? And they're like, okay, well, you have to learn perspective. You have to learn anatomy. And they're like, I can't learn perspective and anatomy as well as these people around me. What am I doing wrong? I must be, like, not understanding, like, what these basic lessons are. It's like, no, you got to walk it back another 2 steps. Like, why are you even bothering to try to get this job? Like, how does that relate to your interests in any way? If this is if this was the thing that you thought would be sort of like the thing you wanted to do, what about the thing you actually wanted to do?
Yeah.
Are you really so knowledgeable of the world that you know that thing isn't going to succeed? I mean, if you're, like, in your first year of college, especially, like, guaranteed you have no idea what's going to happen, because nobody does. By the time you graduate, the industry is going to be different. Like, you studying whatever you think your ideal job is right now as, like, a college student, it's a terrible idea. Like, it's guaranteed to lead to a dead end. Not guaranteed. It's very likely it's a dead end. I mean, think about how much things have changed for the past 5 years. Like, the only reason anyone who's, like, had a career for that whole time has continued to have that career because either they exist in a weird little bubble where things managed to change around them, or they changed with it because they were adaptable. And everyone who wants to get in that industry, they need to start getting up to pace, because you need to start getting ready to change and adapt to the circumstances that you're getting into, because you have no idea what you're getting into.
That's right. And you're developing habits and skills along the way. Another thing I like to tell a lot of my students is, don't worry if you're like looking at your work is very intimidating. I'm sure it's very intimidating for a lot of people. It is for me, because I don't paint in oils, so to try to do what's that?
Neither do I.
Oh, you don't? Well,
no, I work digitally.
No, I know that, but didn't you work in oils before?
I've been digital since day one. First time
really? Painting. That's so surprising. I thought for sure you had to paint in oils to get to where you are now.
I just aped off a lot of oil painters.
Wow, that's really cool. It seems to me like most people make that transition from painting into or from traditional painting into digital.
If they're older than me, yeah.
Yeah.
People who went to art school 10 years before I did didn't have any access to digital painting tools. So
Yeah. So when, by the way, when did you graduate?
from college, uh, 2006, maybe? Yeah, 2006.
Wow. You've done a lot in 10 years. Wow. Um, okay, so I look at your work and I look at Matthew Inman, you know, the oatmeal guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that two different spectrums, right?
Mhm.
But what, and I think it's important for people because I think a lot of people are going to look at your stuff and go, well, that's not what I do. So this guy's talking to a totally different audience. This guy's in the fantasy world. This isn't my world at all, and it doesn't apply to me. But the same things apply to everything on the spectrum of style and content. It comes down to how passionate are you about it, how hardworking are you at it, and how true to your ideas and to your desires are you.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you talk to Matthew Inman about the work on the oatmeal, like, I mean, there's definitely a vein of honesty there that is absolutely important to that entire project. It's fundamental to it. And
Right.
I mean, just because my end product is very, very different from his, I think that we would probably agree wholeheartedly about the amount that we try to like consider our own feelings about a topic when we're, creating something for it.
Right.
And
Yep.
and that being really the first step, more so than anything else, and I think that's true with people across all visual arts, all audio arts, all physical arts. Like you every expressive discipline, I think the people who know that stuff pretty well probably tell you the same things about honesty and expressiveness and connection. And people who say otherwise, uh,
The client.
I think they're either fronting or they've missed something.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's fundamental to all artistic expression, and so I think it's advice I'm willing to give to anybody.
Yeah. For me, creating your own job is giving the world something that the world would never otherwise had.
Right?
If you
Yeah.
hadn't.
Nobody wants to make the Angel Aaron game. When I was working at studios, like someone like at my first job, I was working on an MMO that was like a vampire thing, and they're like, "Oh, there was going to be these hints of that the angels exist in the world." I was like, "Okay, great," because I've kind of made a reputation for angels, and they're like, "Yeah, but not like those." I'm like, "Okay." And and then there's like, okay, well, we're pitching new IPs over at the social game studio. I'm like, well, I have this thing this style, I can work in this style even without reusing these characters. What do you guys think of these things? They're always like, eh. But then it's like, I take the thing out to Reddit and hits the front page of Reddit like
Right.
over and over and over again. Like clearly there's a huge audience that's like way into it, but that I would not be able to create an entire world of this stuff on somebody else's dime. Like
Right.
it had to be my own investment, and it had to be funded by its fans directly, because the best I could hope for is maybe a meager publishing deal from a small publishing house who would give me, an advance that is very much smaller than the amount I've raised on Kickstarter, and then and then I would have to sell through enough copies to even like start to make money beyond that advance. It would be really, really tough.
Yeah.
It would be. I would say that the best I could hope for would be to maybe feel good that something that ink hit paper in the form of my project at all. But with self-publishing getting easier and crowdfunding being a more prevalent thing, I feel like it's now possible for someone who has the ambition to and the business sense to take this stuff on and actually get it made. I mean, I've said this in my Kickstarter updates that this stuff would not exist if it wasn't because of fan support. That it is an impossible project to get funded otherwise, and I really believe that. Um,
You've connected with a group of people who love what you do, and that's the dream of an artist. I mean, that is what we're all basically looking for most of us, I'd say,
Yeah.
is that, like you said, that connection.
And out of hundreds of millions of people in the U.S. alone, like you only need to get a few thousand on board, and you're going to feel very successful. Like
Right.
you get a few thousand people behind you, and you feel like you can do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, when people are pulling out their pocketbooks in collections of hundreds or thousands, you can get books printed, you can get coins made, you can get like entire games like published and off the ground. You can start to work. People start treating you very seriously when it comes to getting business done because you have cash.
Yep.
And you have the capacity to basically make any project exist. Video games are harder because they're multiple disciplinary and they take a lot of money. But like even in that space, like you see people at Kickstarter getting funded pretty thoroughly.
Yeah.
If the project's right.
I used to tell my wife, I want 99.1% of the people to hate me as long as 0.1% loves what I'm doing.
Right. You really don't need a ton of them. My Kickstarter is about to click over to 1,000 backers. Actually, we're at 998. I got it up on the other screen.
See, I've got
More people. If anyone's watching this live and they want to back, you could be number 1,000.
You could be number 1,000.
It makes me feel good.
Update right now. Okay, so that brings me basically to my last question. Oh yeah,
Sure.
you're 998. So you've done this for a lot of people. Owning their own IP, supporting themselves, making a really good living is the ultimate. Is there anything more that you want to do after this? Anything you've got your eye on, or is it another project like this?
So the other project I have going on concurrently is what I mentioned before. One Fantastic Week is my sort of educational platform to help build entrepreneurial skills for artists. I think if I was between projects, I would probably focus on building that up more because that still allows me to stretch my business legs and connect with other artists and really throw myself into a big, meaty project. Angelarium has got a strong 3-year plan. And beyond that, I've got like a 4th year kind of sketched out. But, I don't know if I'm going to spend the whole rest of my career working on it or make another IP or what. But the fact that hasn't been decided for me is part of the appeal of this.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, if the rope finally runs out with this project, I'll just go like, all right, well, I'm going to put this thing in like harvest mode. I'm going to have the books available on the website. All the fulfillment's going to be automated, and I'm going to go and wander off in the sunset and do something else. But until then, I get to keep working on it, and I get to decide at that moment, and that control is, to me, very, very valuable. So someday I'll probably be throwing myself in at another IP, or Angelarium I'll work out some deal to like do like a game or something. I'll have to spend like 5 years on it or something like that, where the whole nature of it will turn upside down, even if it's technically got the same name. I don't know. I'm trying to meet a lot of people who do a lot of different things, so I can get more ideas on that while I'm still working on this one.
Oh, that's cool. It's neat to watch somebody who has really kind of dialed it in, and that's the way I look at your work. I'm so glad that you're willing to take the time to talk to me and also for the YouTube channel. And I think it's a great benefit to people that are looking to, I mean, quite frankly, a lot of people are frustrated because they're not getting the job or they're not getting the freelance work. And I think this is a perspective that people really should look at and try to change their thinking and the possibilities of what they have going on. Because when you were in school, you didn't know you were going to do Angelarium, right?
No, not as a full-time thing, never.
Right. And so there's I think everybody has a future or multiple futures that they could realize. But what's holding us back is our own mind telling us, you can't do that. I couldn't possibly achieve that. I couldn't possibly do this.
Yeah, I think people's own personal standards matter more than they really consider, and I think resetting those standards and getting unreasonable about where you think you should be able to achieve, like is the first step towards making real progress, both in terms of image making as well as business.
Yeah.
Craft a project that can raise $100,000. Because if you craft a project that can only make $1,000, like that's as far as it'll go. But if you set your sights on a project that has the capacity to make 100,000, that's the first step towards getting it done. And I talked to my show last week about how we had some exponential growth between our campaigns, and Sam had a 10 times growth from his previous campaigns. I had like a 3 times growth from my previous campaigns. And a lot of that had to do with us setting our sights on something more ambitious. And it was that shift in ambition that helped more than any other action, really, because it set our expectations for us. Because as independents, like, we have to set our own expectations for everything.
Sometimes it's those small little course changes that lead to big, huge changes in the distance, right?
Yeah. I think I've said all the big points. But is there anything else you want to hit up before I let you go?
No, that's it. I just want to know if you'll send me a link to One Fantastic Week. I'll put that in the description as well.
And you can go to onefantasticweek.com. You can spell it both ways, the number or letters. It's all good. And we broadcast every Tuesday morning. And we've got an archive of about 120 episodes in the can. Sam and I are going to be appearing at Legendeer in Calgary, doing a talk up there. So if you're in the Canada area and you want to go to a thing, we've got like a discount code, and you can go and One Fantastic Week 2016 if you want to get a discount on that talk. It's a two-day workshop. It's going to be really cool. And then we've got a workshop that you can read more about at onefantasticweek.com in November in Nashville, where we are getting a bunch of entrepreneur artists together. And we've got the schedule up, so you can go and look and see what the talks are. And it's 4 days, all on site. You're gonna eat all the food, room and board is all included, including meals and everything. You show up with an open mind and some art materials, and you're gonna get a whole head full of this stuff. Meet a lot of people who have. You can look at what I've done, and you can see a way of doing it. But like we've brought out a lot of people who have done it very different ways, and have very different philosophies, and a lot of women. What's been really interesting seeing the independent scene is like it feels like apart from this very male-dominated industry, like there's a lot of women who ended up going indie, and I kind of wonder if that was like a rebellion against not being able to be included in a very like structurally misogynistic system over the past 20, 30 years.
I've noticed that you've had quite a few women that you've interviewed that are just killing it.
Yeah, they're all out there, but they don't get this kind of cred because they don't get the big sort of public assignments. They are often making things for themselves, and that's where our head is at. And we found there are way more women in that space. There's a much higher level of gender equality when you don't have gatekeepers involved.
Yeah.
Which isn't to make a judgment. I think it's just indicative of the kind of like trends that I think people already observe, and it's really cool. Like I think the majority of our instructors this year are all women, and they probably will continue to be as this thing moves forwards.
Awesome. Send me those links. I'll pop them in. And again, thanks so much for taking the time. Wish you all the luck on your Kickstarter. It looks like you've already funded many times over.
Oh, I hit 1,000 backers.
Oh, did you?
Live on the air. This is great. Thanks everyone who backed it. I've never hit 1,000 backers on a campaign before.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's great. I didn't think it was going to happen today. Yeah. Well, thanks, Will, for having me on. I always like talking about this stuff. And,
yeah, no, you're
talking
great at it. You're great at it. And maybe we'll get to talk again sometime.
I think it'll happen.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.